The Royals will be sending two guys to the All-Star game in Bobby Witt Jr. and Michael Wacha. We'll give them praise next on Locked On Royals.
You are Locked On Royals, your daily Kansas City Royals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are tuned into a Monday edition of Locked On Royals in the Locked On Podcast Network. As always, I'm your host, Jack Johnson, and you can find me on Twitter at JohnnyJ_15. That is at JOHNYJ_15. You also can listen to us on wherever you download your podcast. That can be Spotify, Apple Podcast, Amazon Music, Google Podcast, Odyssey, and YouTube. Just be sure to hit the follow button and subscribe. For you first-time listeners wondering what to expect from this channel, we bring you episodes Monday through Friday, 30-minute episodes in length. And on Friday, it is our mailbag segment. So if you want to be included, all you got to do is respond below to one of the videos throughout the week. Title your comment Mailbag Friday, then put your question. You also can wait for my tweet on Thursday and just respond below with your question there. Also want to tell you that today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. The biggest stage in world soccer is here. Let there be goals on FanDuel. Visit FanDuel.com to get started now. It is a weird Monday for Kansas City as the Royals will be partaking in a day game, getaway game for them, but not too often that you see a 1:10 first pitch on a Monday. So if you're at work or you're taking off work to go to the game, you'll be able to enjoy the good weather for now. It has been pretty humid and warm over the last couple of weeks, but the Royals are going to go for a series win against Philadelphia. Their work's going to be cut out for them as Christopher Sanchez is going to be throwing for Philly, the ace of that rotation, and the Royals will be sending the struggling Noah Cameron out to the mound. But they still have an opportunity to win their first series since, I'm going to say, gosh, you'd have to go back to St. Louis is probably the last time they won a series, and that was the series against the Cardinals in Kansas City. And they got roughed up pretty good in the series finale early on, but then found a way to fight back. Kind of aside from the point, we don't need to spend too much time on that, because the first segment today is going to be about the big news over the weekend, which was Bobby Witt Jr. and Michael Wacha being named to the American League All-Stars. We knew that Bobby Witt Jr. was going to be a shoo-in. It was never going to be any sort of conversation. The last couple of years, what's been unfortunate for him is that he was named to the All-Star team, but he was behind Gunnar Henderson in 2024, and then he was behind Jacob Wilson last season. In the end, he ended up being the much better player than both of them. This year, there's not really a debate. It was Bobby Witt Jr., by far and away the favorite to be the starting shortstop ahead of Andres Gimenez of the Toronto Blue Jays. He's dealt with that knee problem, but seems to be heating up now. He's been one of the best players in the sport, and even though it's been a disastrous season for the Royals, and I'm sure that Bobby would say, I would trade my all-star recognition for this team being competitive, in first place, just in a playoff spot. It's nice to see that he's been rewarded yet again for a phenomenal start to the season, a first half of the season. And what's become so remarkable about Bobby Witt Jr., and we almost take for granted at times, is that 2024 season was so exceptional, where he led the league in hits. He was hitting 330. I mean, he had 30 home run power. I mean, he was tremendous. It was one of the greatest seasons we've ever seen from a shortstop, not just one of the greatest seasons we've ever seen from a Royal. I mean, you stack that up all time across the league. That was a top 15 season, comparing it to anybody out there. I mean, you had a couple of years where Alex Rodriguez had similar numbers, and we recall those days very well, or at least a lot of you do. Bobby Witt Jr. resembles a lot of those years, where it's just continuous 10 WAR seasons. He had his 30th stolen base the other day. He's probably going to end up with anywhere from 50 to 60. And remember, we actually had that discussion in the offseason when people were asking, how is he going to improve his base stealing ability? He's so fast, and he shouldn't be getting thrown out as much as he has been with that type of speed. He's been much better at that this year. But going back to what we've taken for granted with Bobby Witt Jr., and probably the same thing with Michael Wacha, is that Bobby hit 330 And then whenever he hits 295 or 300, we think, well, there's still something missing there. Like he's not playing to his full abilities, but we also can acknowledge guys are always going to have a career best season, and they might not have better numbers than that. But what matters is what they are in the 5 years after that. If you have a guy that hits 340 and the next year he hits 260, 265, well, then you're going to say that's probably an outlier year. And we've seen plenty of players in Kansas City have that outlier year. With Bobby, when you can go from a 10-WAR season to a 9.5 WAR season, and you can have some people say, oh, it wasn't a typical Bobby year. No, that's showing you how tremendous of a player that he is. And it sucks that this season is being wasted on a bad year. You have a team that is nearly 20 games under 500 and one of the best players in the sport. And you've seen the emergence of Jack Caglione and Carter Jensen. But Bobby's always going to put up numbers like this. His numbers next year will be very similar. There's going to be multiple years that he hits 300 consistently. And I'll tell you this, because batting average has taken kind of a back seat over the last decade or so, he's going to be one of those guys 20 years from now you look back and he'll have 8, 9, 10 years where he hit north of 300. And that's just much harder to do nowadays because look at the arms that are being thrown out there all the time. Everybody's throwing a million miles an hour. You've got starters now like Jacob Mizorowski who can throw 106 and stay out there for an entire game. You weren't seeing that 15 to 20 years ago. So to hit 300, hit even 290 consistently, that's really hard to do. And we haven't even talked about his defense, which has always been tremendous, other than that rookie season where he was making that transition from third base to shortstop. But working with Jose Aguasil, just also maturing, he's become one of the best defenders in the entire sport. He is such a marvel to watch play, and never take that for granted, because it's not guaranteed he's going to be here his entire career. So to see him run out there with the American League All-Stars as a starter for the first time, that's going to be probably just a fun little tidbit, if you will, on an otherwise terrible season for the Royals. Then let's talk about Michael Wacha. We did a special segment a couple weeks back about the best acquisitions the Royals have had in the last 10 years. It was the top 10. I had a lot of fun doing it, actually, because in the midst of the Royals not playing well, you were allowed to reminisce on some good things. And I had Michael Wacha number 2 on the list, and Seth Lugo was number 1. And over the last couple of weeks, not that these 3 to 4 weeks should dictate my opinion, but I started to think a little bit harder on this, because when I did put together my top 10 list, it's not like I spent hours trying to come up with those 10 players. I was able to conjure up a list in 30 minutes or so, probably less than that. But I had Lugo number 1 because Seth Lugo's 2024 was really dang good. I mean, anything you thought Seth Lugo was going to do when they signed that deal, I thought he surpassed it in year 1. He was a Cy Young finalist. He had a 3.00 ERA. He threw over 200 innings. He had 25-plus quality starts. He was everything you could have hoped for. And like we said last week, with making that big move this offseason, that sometimes when you give a 3 to 4 year deal, you might only be paying for the first 2 years of that in terms of getting good production. With Seth Lugo, it looks like that 3-year deal they originally gave him, was it worth it when they got that tremendous first year? I would say that it was. Because it's not like it was some $30 million deal that you just can't overcome. But Seth Lugo's also had regression in year 2, and now we've seen some pretty big regression in year number 3. The numbers aren't awful. They're not terrible. They're just not what they were in year 1. Whereas Michael Wacha, getting this All-Star nomination, his first one in 11 years. So think about that crazy gap that he's had, but also being a very consistent arm. That really sums up his time in Kansas City. And if we're coming down to the last couple of weeks of his time in a Royals uniform, he might be number 1 on that list, because he now has the All-Star nomination. And even in the years where he didn't have an All-Star nomination, he was very good for the Royals. And I want you to go back and think about this. How many starts could you count on one hand? Because I got to, I want to say like 2 or 3, where Wacha just got blown up from the start. First inning on, just couldn't get out of the second or third inning, and it was a terrible outing. It happens to the best of guys out there. And Michael Wacha in his mid-30s, he should probably be having more than he's had this season. But I tip my cap. He's such a veteran, mature arm that this rotation always needed. And to get this nomination for the work he's put in for an otherwise really downtrodden rotation, he's earned every bit of this. I'm more proud of Wacha getting the All-Star recognition than Bobby, because we know Bobby's going to be a 10 to 15 time All-Star. This could be the last time that Michael Wacha gets into an All-Star game, and the numbers have backed that up. I can't think of more than 3 or 4 starts in a Royals uniform where he was just dominated from the start. And that's why he should get some recognition maybe, or some votes to being the number 1 acquisition over the last 10 years for the Royals, and certainly top 3 all time in Kansas City. The numbers do not lie, and 10 years from now, we look back on Michael Wacha's time in Kansas City, we will realize just how consistent and how good that he was. It's not that he was throwing it 102 miles an hour and lighting it up all the time. He just worked his tail off, and he was a steady hand in a rotation that needed it in 2024, 2025, and 2026. Okay, we're going to take our first break of the show. When we come back, we're going to continue our series of draft prospects that the Royals should be looking into with the draft less than 2 weeks away. That's coming up next on Locked On Royals. A big thank you to our friends at Amazon for this limited break. This back-to-school season, spend less on your kids with Amazon. We all know how crazy the back-to-school shopping experience can be, and it starts with a few items on the list, then suddenly you're shopping for supplies, clothes, lunch gear, tech, and about 10 other things you didn't see coming. It adds up fast. The school supply list is when you look at the school supply list and wonder if you're shopping for one child or opening a small office supply store. I didn't even realize first grade required this much inventory. Now, I don't have kids, but I know a lot of you listening are thinking like I am. Shopping like this can get out of control if you're not careful. When the school says your child needs a calculator, headphones, or tablets for the class, and somehow you're buying another one before the semester is halfway over, it's like you're wondering, when did kids need so much tech for third grade? We're talking first grade, third grade. It all just continues to add up. So remember, with Amazon's low back-to-school prices, just spend less on your kids, because every dollar you don't spend on them is a dollar you haven't spent on them. Shop back to school at Amazon and spend less on your kids. On to segment number 2 of Locked On Royals and the Locked On Podcast Network. I am your host, Jack Johnson, and you can find me on Twitter at JohnnyJ_15. Last week, we did our first edition of a series of, we'll just say segments. I'm not sure if it's ever going to lead off our show, unless, of course, we go through another series where there's really nothing to talk about when it comes to the current state of the Royals. And we're going to look ahead to the Major League Baseball draft, because that's something that we will get a ton of content out of. And last week, we gave you one of our first prospects to talk about, and Drew Burress, the outfielder out of Georgia Tech. A couple of you said, I really like that pick. A couple of you said, I'd be a bit let down. You're concerned about the size and the ability of that bat translating to the big league level. All are very fair points to make. This next one that I want to bring up is maybe the most exciting pick that I believe the Royals could make. Because if you're wanting to have a fast track, if you're wanting to have somebody that maybe spends half a season, maybe 10 months total in the minor leagues, which still would be a little bit longer when you're thinking about a season's worth and how many months you're actually there. But I would say the guy who has the best chance of fast-tracking to Kansas City, if they selected him, would be Jackson Flora, the right-hander out of UC Santa Barbara. The numbers are ridiculous, and you can nitpick all you want and say, well, he was in the Big West, and it's not like he was doing this in the SEC. And we've seen it from time to time where you have smaller school guys get taken first round, and the numbers don't really translate because their overpowering stuff was really only overpowering to teams they were playing, teams they were facing in their conference. But I'll just tell you right now, you won't find any other college arm out there, which is why Jackson Flora is mocked top 10 in every single draft. You won't find numbers like this. He made 16 starts. He was 12-0. He had a 1.06 ERA in 102 innings. He struck out 133 guys in 102 innings, and he walked only 32. He has ridiculous, explosive stuff. He's got good size as well, 6'5", 205, a little bit on the slender side, but I'm not all that concerned about it. You go to Pitching Ninja, just go to Twitter, go to YouTube, and type in Jackson Flora highlights. You'll like what you will see. You will like the arsenal that he possesses. And that's stuff that I don't care if you're in high school, Division III, Division II, Division I, minor leagues, or the pros. That stuff plays. I believe right now, Jackson Flora could go from the draft to the big leagues and have somewhat of success. You're not going to do that. You're not going to rush him. But he reminds me a lot of Chase Burns. Now, Chase Burns went from Tennessee to Wake Forest. And the numbers were good. The strikeout numbers were good. He was throwing 101, 102. First year in the big leagues, growing pains there. Because big league hitters, they see 100 far more often than college guys do. But then he developed quickly. He got into a string of good outings, or he went through a string of good outings. And then this year, he's been one of the best pitchers in all of baseball. Because the stuff was so undeniably explosive, you harness that a little bit, you throw more strikes, you put the ball where you want it to go, and you're going to see the numbers improve dramatically. And Jackson Flora, to me, is somebody that, if you took him in the draft, he would be in your rotation midseason next year. I would have a ton of confidence in that, assuming that he stays healthy. I mean, everything about him screams frontline starter and multiple-time All-Star, and you're not going to have to worry about, is he a boom or a bust prospect. He's going to be a very good pitcher. What I would be wondering, because I had to do this with Drew Burress as well. With Burress, it was the height concern, and will that type of power with an aluminum bat translate to minor league ball and then eventually to the pros? With Jackson Flora, I would wonder, when you're so reliant on overpowering stuff to just dominate lower level hitters, right, smaller school guys, how are you going to adapt to hitters that have seen that before? How are you going to put away guys where in college, if you throw 100 to 102, you throw that 3 consecutive times to a 9-hole hitter, they're not going to touch it. Most of them are not going to be able to touch it. But you get to the pros, and you have a 6-hole hitter. I mean, you even in Double-A, you throw 100 3 straight times, he'll square up one of them if you don't put it where you want it to. But I look at the state of the Royals' pitching staff in Kansas City. I look at where it is at the minor league level, and we know that Kendrick Churio, David Shields, Justin Lampkin, those are all guys that have a good amount of upside. Jackson Flora, to me, would be that pick where you say, he's our number one by the end of 2027. I mean, that's how good he can be. If not by the end of 2027, certainly by 2028. I mean, I would have this hot take, and I don't even know if the Royals are going to take him, but if they did, I would say that he'd be their opening day starter in 2028. That's the stuff we're talking about. And yes, the injuries would be another factor of that, just because it has to go on your radar when you've got a young arm throwing 100 plus with 4 or 5 different pitches that have a lot of snap to him. And that would be maybe the only way that he just doesn't pan out at all. That's how high I am on a guy like Jackson Flora. I mean, you do that at the Division I level, you've either got, at bare minimum, if you go to the big leagues, you have a career as a reliever. That's how good the stuff is. You don't have guys like this very often. And there are some really good SEC arms that are going to go top 15, top 20 in the Major League Baseball draft, but pretty much everybody has Jackson Flora going top 7. And we're going to see how the board falls, because I always have the top 3 usually locked down. Then after that, it can be up in the air. And I'll tell you this, I had my top 3 for the 2024 Major League Baseball draft, and then the Rockies reached on Charlie Condon, and the Reds decided to go Chase Burns, And then the Athletics went with Kurtz, which then allowed Jack Caglione to fall to the Royals, J.J. Weatherholt to fall below that. Hagen Smith went to the White Sox there. I mean, it was a chaotic board. This is one where I would say I'm pretty confident in the top two. After that, you can see teams go underslot. You can see teams, maybe draft a guy where they are. The Rays are drafting second. So would the Rays go and take somebody that maybe they view helping them late this season? You never can rule it out because teams have a different mindset. And for the Royals, the mindset is about we need to build the farm system. There should never be a decision made in the front office, in the scouting department, going into this draft of how can we help out this team. This team is experiencing a lost season. It's not going to get much better. But if you go Jackson Flora, you start him in Double-A next year. He's probably in Triple-A by May. And then I would say by June or July, he would be in your rotation. You don't need to rush him, right? But I would say guys with that stuff, you don't need to round out a lot in their game or a lot in their arsenal. You want to make sure you tune up some stuff. You got to prepare them for the big leagues after all. But as I just said, how high am I on Jackson Flora? He could be in a big league bullpen right now. That's how good the stuff is. You don't treat him like that if the Royals take him. You want him to get at minimum probably between the end of this year and a little bit of next year. I need to see 20 starts. Maybe 15 if I was going to move a little bit quicker. But this year, because he only had 16 starts for UC Santa Barbara, I'm sure you could work out a way where you get 4 to 5 starts, whether that's in Low A Columbia, High A Quad Cities, or just in the Arizona complex. Now, I'm speaking of him like the Royals have already drafted him, but I would be ecstatic about it. He would be the guy that if the Royals took him, I would be the most elated with. I like the stuff. I like, the makeup of being a number one, and the Royals are due for having a true number one working their way up the minor league ranks. You went 2 prep bats with your 2 picks last year. I would be all right if they went the pitching route because I also have more faith the Royals can develop a high-end pitcher than they could a prep bat or even a college bat for that matter. They've got a history of success over the last 3 to 4 years developing pitchers than they really ever have developing hitters. Would you be all right if the Royals took Jackson Flora with their first selection in the 2026 Major League Baseball Draft? Let us know in the YouTube comments below. When we come back, we are going to talk a little bit about Isaac Collins, somebody I've not been high on this year, but suddenly he's been heating up. Is that going to earn him a spot on next year's roster, or is this just a flash in the pan? We'll talk about it next on Locked On Royals. The biggest stage in world soccer is here, and every match feels like it has the potential for a memorable moment. One goal can completely change the energy of a game, shift momentum, and alter the outcome in an instant. That's what makes tournament soccer so exciting from the opening whistle to the final kick. Now FanDuel is giving fans another reason to stay locked into every match with every goal pays. Bet on a match and get bonus bets for every goal scored in that match. More goals means more bonus bets. All you have to do is turn on your token. We've all seen those matches where it's scoreless for what feels like forever, and then one goal completely flips the game. Suddenly everybody's pressing, the crowd comes alive, and the final 20 minutes become must-watch television. You got to be looking for those matchups where both teams are aggressive offensively because those games can open up fast. The more chances being created, the more exciting the match becomes from beginning to end. And now you get the benefit from each goal scored. From opening whistle to the final kick, let there be goals on FanDuel. Visit FanDuel.com to get started now. Also want to tell you about Odoo. And with Odoo, running a business shouldn't feel like you're trying to connect a bunch of systems that were never designed to work together. One app for accounting, another for inventory, another for sales, and somehow none of them talk to each other. That's where Odoo comes in. Odoo is an all-in-one business management software that brings every part of your business together in one powerful platform. From sales and accounting to inventory and marketing, everything works in one place, helping your team move faster, stay organized, and focused on growth of business instead of managing software. The best organizations know that success isn't just about talent, it's about having everyone working toward the same goal. And that's true in sports, just like in business. Great organizations win because operations matter, and that's why you should get Odoo. Try for free today at odoo.com/lockedon. That's odoo.com/lockedon. On to segment number 3 of Locked On Royals and the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jack Johnson. And a reminder that if you are looking for daily content for more than just, my videos out there, we have the Locked On Royals postcast, which is hosted by Chance Lebo, where he goes to you live for about 15 to 20 minutes after the game. You can count on that later on today, as the Royals will take on the Philadelphia Phillies, a first pitch of 1:10. And I'm going to have a little bit of a gripe to open up this segment because the Royals are putting together a platoon lineup against Christopher Sanchez, who's just been ridiculous this year. He's 10-3 with a 2.00 ERA. Noah Cameron throwing for Kansas City, who is 4-6 with a 4.95 ERA. You have Lane Thomas leading off, Bobby hitting second. He's DHing, probably just making sure that you're not overdoing it with the knee injury he's been dealing with. Salvi's going to be hitting third. He's at first base. Caglione's hitting cleanup and right. Nick Lofton's at second. He is hitting fifth. Starling Marte is hitting sixth. He's in left field. Tyler Tolbert's at short. He's hitting seventh. Luke Maile making his season debut. He's hitting eighth and doing the catching. And Josh Rojas is rounding it out, hitting ninth and playing third base. I get it. The Royals have a ton of injuries, and they don't have a lot of depth. So few lineups are going to look glamorous when you put them out there. But I am really struggling to find a valid reason, why Isaac Collins is not in the lineup. Not when you've got Starling Marte, Nick Lofton, Tyler Tolbert, Josh Rojas all in there. I understand why Luke Maile is, because Carter Jensen's getting a day off, I guess. And Carter's been slumping a little bit over this homestand, so maybe he just needs a little bit of a breather, and you are nearly 20 games under 500. You don't want to run some of these guys in the ground because you want them to play their best baseball in the second half. More so talking about the young guys. Isaac Collins, though, and this snuck up on me, so I can admit where this was not on my radar. And it comes from a great Royals Twitter follow, has been for years, did Royals Farm Report and Alex Duvall. But Isaac Collins, since April 24th, which is over 224 plate appearances, and by the way, you can follow him on Twitter at ADUVALL0 with the slash through it, of course. I'm blanking on what you call that. And then 13. So ADuval013. You'll find him pretty easily on Twitter. But he put out there yesterday that Collins, over those 224 plate appearances, has a 358 OBP and a 108 WRC+. Switch hitting left fielder that you acquired to lengthen out your lineup, and that stuns me. That since the end of the first month of the season, I should say, he's been exactly what you hoped he would have been. And you've heard me on this podcast say they need a new left fielder next year, and I stand by that. Isaac Collins would be a perfect utility guy. He can play a little bit of second base. He can play left field. I would spend the offseason teaching him how to play left, center, second, maybe a little bit of third. Make him that super utility guy, because it is even better that he's a switch hitter. So you can mix and match wherever you want to. And if you want to roll with Isaac Collins, I don't know, as your second baseman next year, he does have some experience there. And offensively, he might give you more upside than Michael Massey. But Massey's also shown great defense, good enough hitting. That should be your second baseman going into next year. But for Collins, it's mainly been because the start of the year was so poor for him, and the Royals have been playing catch-up this entire year. These type of numbers, these type of stats, they slip by us. I mean, they're just not things that it'll come up on our radar when the team's not playing well. But Collins had a multi-hit day yesterday. I don't know why he's not in there today. And I know a lot of people will say, well, that's Matt Quatrero playing the matchups, playing the analytics. I also said on Friday that righty-lefty's not really analytics to me. That's matchup-based that we've been doing in baseball for years and years and years. But Q also overdoes it from time to time. So unless Isaac Collins needed a day off and he's dealing with something, then I get it, because you're not going to have a guy play through injury when you're 18 games under 500. But I don't get this lineup if it's just, well, we want to play the matchups against Christopher Sanchez, because Isaac Collins is a switch hitter. Now, I don't have in front of me what his numbers are against lefties, but I'll tell you this. It's probably better than what Tyler Tolbert's doing for you. And I know Starling Marte is in left field, and maybe this is more so about Bobby Witt Jr. DHing. So if Bobby's going to DH, your shortstops include Tyler Tolbert and Josh Rojas, and Tyler Tolbert's got more experience at shortstop this season than Rojas does. Starling Marte is going to play. You want Caglione in there, because if you're not going to play Jensen, you at least want Cags out there. Maybe there just wasn't a spot for him, but I don't know. I would have been all right maybe trying to think about this or piece it together. You couldn't put Marte in center field. You can't put Collins in center field. So I understand that the limitations for some of these guys defensively don't allow you to just easily pencil in Isaac Collins, but I would have liked to see him somewhere in the lineup today, because that did surprise me. And I credit Alex Duvall for pointing that out. Isaac Collins has not been on the top of my list this year. I have viewed his season mostly as a disappointment. But now you're starting to see, as we get closer to the All-Star break, he's getting closer to the numbers that were projected for him. I went over to FanGraphs and saw the projections they had set for him. It was around 240 something, like 245 with a 348 OBP. And he's at 238 right now with a 339 OBP. Like, he's inching closer to that and inching closer to being a league average bat. And if Isaac Collins finishes this year as a league average bat, you can bottle that up and say next year, he's our Nick Lofton. Next year, he's what Jonathan India was supposed to be. He's just somebody that you can count on being a bench piece, but an above-average bench piece, which the Royals don't have a lot of, as we've seen with all these guys going down to injury. But that was pretty surprising to me. Since the end of April, Isaac Collins has been an above-average bat with a near 360 OBP. You'll take that every day, and I just wish that we can see him in the lineup every single day now that it's a lost season for Kansas City. That's going to do it for another edition of Locked On Royals on the Locked On Podcast Network. I've been your host, Jack Johnson. Before we say goodbye, we want to thank you for making Locked On your first listen every day. For your second listen, find the all-night Locked On MLB Game Night. Every game, every night until a World Series champion is crowned. Get local analysis on a national scale and find MLB Game Night on Locked On MLB on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. Until tomorrow, you take it easy, Kansas City.